recording now? Great. So we will be recording this session just to make sure that we do have this accessible to people who weren't able to make it, and so that we can circulate this later. So for the sake of the quality of the audio of the recording, we will be keeping everyone on mute for this session, but please feel free to use the chat for questions or comments or feedback, anything throughout this session. So like I said, agenda will be a quick introduction to the program, followed by a Solar 101, and then some time for Q&A. So the Solar over Louisville program is what is called a Solarize program. And I'll get into what that means in just a second. But this is a partnership between Louisville Metro Government's Office of Advanced Planning and Sustainability and the Louisville Sustainability Council, which is a local environmental nonprofit here in Louisville. We also want to give a shout out to the Kentucky Solar Energy Society, who was very instrumental in kind of conceptualizing and developing this campaign several years ago. And they have been advisors on this campaign as well throughout this session, this year around. So the future of solar is very bright, not just around the world, but also in Kentucky. And the reason that we're seeing so much more awareness and interest in solar is because the price of solar is falling rapidly. You'll see that prices have fallen drastically over the past decade, over 70%. And this is happening globally. We're also seeing rising investment locally in solar as well in Kentucky. And the reason that most people are interested in solar, primarily, of course, there's the energy cost savings reasons. Solar is now the cheapest source of electricity globally, especially if you're just doing a simple solar array system without a battery storage, which can add costs. It is a very cheap form of electricity. Once the equipment is paid for, it basically produces free energy for the life of the equipment. And most of the equipment these days are guaranteed for at least 25 years, and they tend to last almost twice as long as that. They're largely maintenance free once they're installed. And in addition to the energy savings values, there's also the economic value of it increasing your property's value. So Zillow has showed that homes or properties that have solar on them sell for about 4% more even in economic downturns. So apart from the monetary aspects, of course, there's other things that attract people to solar as well. And one of them is the energy independence aspect of it, especially if you're coupling your solar system with a battery system, then you can pretty much be independent and off the grid if that's something that you're going for. There's also the value of the community value of supporting local solar jobs and commuting us and supporting our city's 100% clean energy goals. Now, before we get too much into solar, we do want to mention that energy efficiency is kind of a first step that we recommend that everyone look into, because the more energy efficient your home is, the less you use to begin with, and the easier it is to offset that with solar. So the less solar you need to produce to offset that energy. And we're not going to talk too much about energy efficiency today, but we do have some resources, and we'll send this in a follow-up email so you can refer to these. So now coming to the Solar over Louisville program. I mentioned that it's a Solarize campaign. So what that means is that these are campaigns that have been piloted in different regions across the country. And the way that it works is that it allows many residents and businesses to sign up to go solar together so that everyone can negotiate a wholesale discounted rate when they go solar together, rather than each individual trying to get a good deal on solar by themselves. So in this case, Louisville Metro Government has partnered with the LSC on this program to organize this program. And we've had over 1,000 people express interest in going solar, and about 50 of them have already signed contracts through this program. The other benefits of the program are that we go through a process of pre-screening your home initially just by looking at aerial imagery. And that gives us a good idea as to whether your home is good for solar or not based on your shading, orientation. So a lot of times you don't have to go through the entire process of exploring this option if your home is just not going to be a good place for solar. So we can give you that feedback right away and then give you the option to either continue on or consider some other options for your home. And then the third benefit, of course, is that we select a vetted installer. So there's a lot of companies out there, and unfortunately, not all of them are trustworthy companies. So we have gone through a very rigorous vetting process to choose an installer that we trust, that we know is going to do quality work, and that is offering a good price. So for this program, this is not actually just open to Jefferson County. It is open to a 15 county regions surrounding Jefferson County. That's 5 counties in Indiana, as well as 10 on the Kentucky side. It's open to residents as well as small businesses. So we do include commercial and institutional and places of worship, those types of properties. We're just not doing large scale commercial or industrial size solar. So anything that's comparable to like a residence, that's the kind of building that we will also include in this program. And there is a limited sign up window, which is something to keep in mind as well. So the sign up process for Solar over Louisville is very simple. We have a simple online sign up form on our website. And all you need for that is basic contact information and your address that you need to provide. In addition, we ask for your last 12 months of energy use, because that helps the installer come up with an estimate on what kind of system size your house might need. It's very easy to find this information, especially most of you will be served by LG&E in this area. And the most recent LG&E bill, as you can see on this image here, at the bottom we'll have a graph like this, and these little blue bars are the kilowatt hours or the energy used each month. So you can just add up those total numbers, and that'll tell you how much energy your property has used over the year. And that's very helpful information to give you a report quote. We also ask for the age and type of your roof, just so that, you know, if you have a very old roof, then we might recommend that you look into replacing or repairing that first before going solar. And as I mentioned, there is a limited sign-up period. The Solar over Louisville deadline was on June 30th, and we just extended it because of the enthusiastic response to this program to August 14th. And that is just to express interest in this program. To actually sign a contract, you will have some more time to go through the process of considering the remote quote and asking questions and then making a decision on that. So in selecting an installer, we looked at a few different factors. We looked at affordable pricing. We looked at whether it was a regionally based company supporting local jobs and had a good track record of work in the region, which was important to us. And also looking at technical, credentials, accreditations, quality of hardware, and things like that. And based on this criteria, we got a lot of responses, and we selected Solar Energy Solutions. They're a great company. They're based in Kentucky, and they have the NABCEP certification, which is the highest industry recognized certification for the solar installers. And they have several NABCEP certified installers, which is a very good thing. And in addition to that, they're also offering a very generous 12 to 19% discount for anyone participating in this campaign. And that range really depends on the system size and other factors. And another interesting thing about Solar Energy Solutions is that they also have participated in other solarized campaigns in the region, as you'll see on this list here. Now, just to give you a quick update on where this campaign is right now. This is data from a little bit of probably a month ago or so. So we've actually received more signups since then. But this is a map that the Rocky Mountain Institute helped us create that shows where all the signups are coming from. So you'll see that we do have signups coming from all the surrounding counties, but a majority of them are still in Jefferson County, and they are pretty evenly distributed. And typically solar is something that is, nationally as well as in the state, something that you'll find in higher income communities and majority white neighborhoods. But in this campaign, we have been able to be a little bit more equitable, and we are seeing more interest from low to moderate income communities as well as communities of color. So, we've been able to, reach more of the community through this campaign. And that's also thanks to word of mouth and many of you getting the word out to your friends and neighbors. So we certainly appreciate that. So I think that's it for my portion of the presentation. This 100percentlu.com/2040 is our website where you can sign up for Solar over Louisville and learn more about it. And I will now hand it over to Julie Jones, who will walk you through a Solar 101 presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Sumita. All right. Well, I am Julie Jones. I'm the Director of Marketing at Solar Energy Solutions. I've been in the solar field for over 10 years with a focus in residential and in community solar programs like this. We work mainly in Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana, but we also dip into some of the surrounding states, which you can see on the slide here. All right. And then, so just a little bit about us, we've been around for 16 years, 7 states. We have been, installing, we've got over 2,000 installations up and running now. And we've done a lot of work for, some of these names that you'll recognize, the National Guard. I think about 16 to 18 projects, maybe more with them. University of Louisville, Louisville Metro, UK, and then, over on the Indiana side, City of Bloomington, and a lot of different things over there. All right. Just about us personally, we are a woman-owned business. We're headquartered in Lexington, but we have warehouses in Lexington, Louisville, Indianapolis, and Cincinnati. We are dedicated to solar PV and battery storage. And I would say that about 60-40 split between sort of utilities / commercial and residential installations. We have actually now a staff of about 60 people. And this shows 5 of our NABCEP certifications. I know we have one other and one is pending. So we have more than anyone that we know of in the region. We're Tesla Powerwall certified, also Tesla Solar Roof, and then SunPower. All right, and this is just a little bit of kind of everything we've done, all the different types of installations, roof, fixed pole installations, ground mounts, which, can be good for homeowners who have, a lot of property, a little, sort of suburban or even a little more rural, and just lots of different things there. All right. Okay. So let's get into it. Solar. Solar is an awesome thing, but it's just hard to know what you need to know if you've never kind of been through it before. So I love to talk to people about this. Solar is, it's a big sort of project for your home, and, when you make other sort of big purchases in your life, you have people to ask about it. The first time you bought a car, you knew people you could ask, but you probably don't know people who bought solar. So, this Solar 101 is going to take you through all of the components and things to think about with solar so that you can feel confident asking questions and looking at, a bid and kind of deciding if it's right for you. All right. So these are just the main parts. Number 1, you've got the solar panels generally on the roof, sometimes ground mount, that sends power down to a piece of equipment called the inverter. The inverter basically takes the direct current that the panels make, and it turns it into the alternating current that your house uses. You have inverters in your house, you just don't know it. Most computers plug in, they have an inverter because your computer runs on direct current and your house has alternating current. So that little box in between that you probably thought was useless is not useless. So then power goes to the main electric panel. So it back feeds the electric panel so that it can then, the panel will send power out everywhere it's needed in the house. So then that's number 4, goes out to your electric loads. And then it will, if you're producing more than your home needs, you'll have a different meter that will be put in by the utility, and it's a bidirectional meter. And this means instead of just running forward as you're pulling power from the grid into your house, it will also run backwards as you send power out, and it will keep track of that. And so, yeah, anything that you don't use goes out to the grid and is used probably by, some of your neighbors close by. All right. So that pushing and pulling of power is called net metering. If you've started to look into solar at all, you've probably started seeing this. All of us in solar, like we talk about net metering, like everybody in the world knows what this means, but people don't. So basically it is, I'm going to kind of run through this slide. It looks a little complicated, but it's pretty simple. This is from the National Renewable National Renewable Energies Laboratory, sorry. So the distributed system right here, DG system, that's your solar. So, the power that comes down here gets used by your home, but if it's not used by your home, it's sent out through that bidirectional meter that we talked about. Now, when your house needs extra power, power comes in and the meter here rolls forward and then into your house where your house is needed. And so the idea is that you pay the net difference of those things. So that's what net metering is. All right. So the one thing to understand though with net metering is that your house, when you have solar in a net metered system, can send power into the electrical lines. So one of the big bummers of solar is if you don't have a battery and the grid goes down, you will also lose power because your house could accidentally be sending power out into lines that people are working on. So as soon as your system doesn't see that the grid is available, it will turn off. And it has to, just as a precaution for, linesmen or lines people, working out there. So I always like to explain that right away. All right. So different types of solar systems. So 95% of the systems out there are grid tied. If you don't lose power that often, then you don't need a battery. Sometimes, you may want a battery for different reasons. Some people want them, if they're in a place where you lose, power a lot. Other people have things that they need to keep running and they could buy a generator or they could buy a battery, and they may make the choice for the battery. Then there's off grid. If you're off grid, you will definitely have to have a generator because in the wintertime, there won't be enough sun at different points. And you can couple that with a battery, but like I said, the majority of people do off grid, I'm not off grid, do grid tied. And then the nice thing about batteries now is you can always add it later. So it's not something you have to decide on today. All right. Okay, so batteries, we just talked about them. The pros are, that you can store that extra power. So if you don't want to lose power, you can store power in case of an outage. The nice thing about the new style of batteries, like the Tesla battery, is they're really designed to be used. Whereas classic batteries, the more you use them, the more they broke down. Whereas a Tesla has a 10-year, guaranteed lifespan, and it is designed to be cycled multiple times a day, So you can use your own power, like if you want to self-consume as much as possible, and if the environmental sort of benefits are what you're doing solar for, that may be a great thing. Also, it allows you to save sort of a percentage of the battery in case of an outage. You can even connect it to the weather service very easily in a very simple app. And so if it sees like very bad weather coming, it will override your settings and save everything up to 100%, so that you have the most power to get through, whatever that weather event is. The cons are it is expensive. It's it will use your solar, but it's still expensive, like a whole home generator, even more. And it has a 10-year guaranteed life, where your solar has a 25 plus guaranteed life. So there's the possibility that you would need to buy another one. But again, you don't need to have a system if you don't absolutely have to. You don't need to have a battery on your system if you don't absolutely have to run through an outage. It's sort of a nice to have. All right. So this is how the solar works with the battery. So when the grid goes down, the solar from the panels will not go out to the grid. That part will be shut down, but it'll create like a sort of microgrid in your house where it will go into the inverter will go into the battery, whatever's not needed, and go into the home for whatever's needed. That way it never enters the grid at all, and no one would be in danger from that power. All right. Okay. So now that we kind of understand a little bit about how solar works, let's talk about what makes a roof good for solar. So 3 things that we always look at is we look at, shading or, anything that would block light to your home. We look at the orientation of your roof, and we also look at the configuration of the roof. And I'll kind of go through those on the next slides. Okay, so shading. A very easy way to tell if your roof gets enough sun for solar is to go to Google's sunroof project. If you just Google it, you'll find it. And what that does is show you the solar radiation that your roof gets all year round. So you can see the house on the left. I mean, there's no shading at all. It's totally fine. The panels will go on that bright yellow sunny side, and it'll be great. In the middle roof, you see that garage roof is a little bit less sunny, so you would lean toward just putting panels on the main roof. And you would only use that, you could use that garage roof if you just needed a little bit more, but you would get a little less out of those panels. But, you would know that. On the right is what is, I'm sure, a beautiful, wood surrounded house, but it is not right for solar. There's a lot of things, if they're environmentally minded, they can do, but solar, would not be a good fit for them. So, you can go out and look at your roof, and just see what it looks like. All right, next one. Okay, so the configuration is really the complexity of a roof. So on the left, we've got the simplest roof possible. It's just straight, flat, no dormers, no bump outs, just ideal. In the center, we've got one main dormer, and that's kind of okay. We would design around that. We would design just to the left of that dormer, and we would take shade readings along the edge of the dormer so that we could understand how much sun, like how much shade panels close to that would get. Sometimes you don't lose a whole lot. You might lose a little bit in the morning from those panels, but then as it gets into the afternoon, you'd get a lot more. So it just kind of depends on how much power, you want to produce, what your goals are, but that house, can work, just we have to work around a little bit. Now, the house on the right is very complex. Getting panels on something like this really can be difficult. There are just a few surfaces that would work to hold panels, and you could only get 1 or 2 on each different one. So a very, very complex roof like that might not be a good fit for solar. Then if you have some area in the yard, you could put in, a pergola, or with solar panels or different things, but the roof might not be the right spot for the solar. All right. Okay, and then orientation. So over here on the left, like south is perfect. It's perfect. The sun is going to hit that roof all day long. In the winter, it's going to be lower on the horizon. You're not going to get as much sun, but south is great. Now, east and west can absolutely work. You will lose, a little bit, as the sun moves across and away from the other side, but generally the output is only about 10, 12, maybe 15%, depending on the pitch. So those can still be very good options for solar. And then often, a house isn't built exactly, north, south, or east, west. So on a house like the one to the right, we would put panels, on the 2, green spots because they would get the most sun. Sorry, I get a little water. All right. And then if the roof just isn't good, we have ground mounts. So, the nice thing about a ground mount, if you have the space for it, is that we can, put it where there is no shading. We can face it directly south. We will tilt it at the ideal sort of tilt. And, it works perfectly. There is some extra cost because you're building a structure. But sometimes, depending on the size, there's some savings in labor because you're not going up and down off the roof. So smaller ones will cost a little more than it would on the roof, where some larger systems could cost a little less because there's not so much labor. So it's something good to consider if you have either a very shaded, very complex, roof, or just other sort of things that aren't ideal. All right, so benefits of solar, the energy savings, solar is an asset that will pay for itself. It will take 8 to 12 years to pay for itself, but it will pay for itself. You get sort of rate security. So basically all the power that you get from that system, you've already paid for. So the longer it produces, the less you paid per kilowatt hour for that solar. Energy security, if you have a battery, that can give you that energy security. And there are some reasons, to do that. Zillow says that, solar homes have a 4% increase. I've also seen studies that solar homes sell faster. Of course, they were probably from, California or maybe the East Coast, but what comes there usually comes here a little bit later. So, and then of course, it is better for the environment because not as much carbon. There is a small amount of carbon in producing them, but they far outstrip that carbon. So, all right, we can go on. And additional costs. So there are things that can cause more cost for a system, if it's just harder to install. So if it's a super steep roof, which is like a 712 pitch, that is just going to take, more time, for installers to be very careful to make sure not to get hurt themselves, to damage the roof. They can't walk on it, so they'll put in some bracing. So it just does take a little more, it's a little more cost. If you have to split the solar onto, a very complex roof, that has lots of different facets, that will add a little bit of cost. If there's a vent sort of right in the way of where we would want to put the solar, there's a small fee for relocating that vent. We can always work around it. It just kind of depends on what is important to you. Without Wi-Fi, we can do a cell card for monitoring, although I will say with all the different shortages, I do not believe that cell cards are very easy to come by at the moment. So hardwiring is another option. So just hardwire it right into the router, and that might involve an internal Cat5 run. So that might cause a little more cost. And then on ground mounts, if we had to drill into concrete, if there's a big change in elevation, sort of from east to west, and then 50 feet of trenching is included, but if there's longer trenching, there would just be additional costs there. All right. And then, so your proposal will give you a lot of information. It'll give you all the components, and the costs. It'll give you the installed cost, and then it will show you the net cost, because there's a 26% federal tax credit through the end of the year, but that is off of what you owe the federal government. So if you've paid the federal government, everything that you owe them at the end of the year, then you will subtract out this amount and they'll pay that back to you. I know some people, especially retired people who don't have a lot of income, you can split that tax credit out over a number of years. Because the tax credit steps down to 22% next year, I don't know if that would go down, like any amount that you push to the next year might be at that 22%, but that would be sort of a tax person's call, but just to make you aware of it. We'll let you know what the output is going to be, all through the year, the percentage of offset, and give you an idea of where it's going to be and how it's going to look, so you'll get kind of a full customized proposal for your home or small business. And then this kind of gives just a little bit of a look at kind of what it might cost. And this is after the tax credit. So, a smaller system might be in that $15,000 range after that 26% tax credit. you know, a more medium-sized system, you know, and you can see here the kilowatt hours. If you look at your bill and kind of look at the kilowatt hours, you'll kind of see where you're going to be, you know, because the larger systems, you know, this is sort of the average home in the United States uses 10,700 kilowatt hours. So this would be kind of your average system and your larger system. And these are, you know, payments that, you know, depending on the exact, this is a range, but depending on the exact price, you know, you can do financing over 20 years, which is nice. Usually gets it down below what your current utility bill is. But we have lots of different options there too. All right. And then, so the steps, you know, so you've done your homework, you know a little bit more about solar. You know, you can look at your roof. You know, Solar over Louisville will take a look at your roof too. You know, take a look at your bill, kind of understand the kilowatt hours, the kWh. The annual is almost always listed on a bill. Then, you know, getting a remote quote, you know, from us is super easy. You know, once Solar over Louisville sends it on to us, you know, we take a look. We have a system where we can use, you know, Google to go in and draw, you know, the panels in and get all the shading readings. We do go out and do a site visit to verify everything, you know, at the end, but we can get really, really close with what we can do, you know, in that program. And then, yeah, the site visit just to confirm, and then, you know, you get your formalized quote and, you know, sign the contract, and then you'll have solar. All right. All right. So there we go. That's solar in a nutshell. So if you have questions, go ahead.
I was just going to say, right before we jump into questions, I do want to just have one more slide here about an upcoming event next week. We have an in-person collaboration with the Louisville Sustainability Council's Green Drinks. They do one, I think, every other month, and they're doing a pop-up one just to collaborate with Solar over Louisville because that deadline is coming up. And we will be collaborating with them at Atrium Brewing. We'll be doing a much smaller, briefer version of this presentation, but we'll have our computers there to help people enroll on the spot, answer any questions, and just kind of meet everyone and talk to you about solar. So we will send this information out as well in the follow-up email, but just wanted to make everyone aware of that. And now I see that there are some questions in the chat. I think Nick is going to go through those questions, and then Julie will be answering them. So I'm going to stop screen sharing so we can get to the Q&A.
Yeah, right. Folks, keep dropping questions into the chat if you have them or something pops into your mind. I'll go ahead and start from the top. We probably covered a little bit of this in the presentation, but it doesn't hurt to reiterate. Kelly wants to know about the ground mounts, which you mentioned, but that sounds like it could maybe be a viable option for them. So I don't know if you have anything to elaborate or if they want to.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if the roof isn't great and you've got a good space for it, yeah, just it can be a really good option, you know, because like I said, we can sort of place it in exactly the right sort of place, facing south, you know, 50 feet of trenching. So, but even if you need it further away from the home, there's just a little more cost in that. So a ground mount can be a great way to go.
We have a question from Karen about the batteries. Is Tesla the only battery brand that you all use, or are there other options there?
It is the only battery brand that we use. Yeah, right now we've looked at other ones and we still believe that it's the best. And we do look sort of, well, especially, you know, they were sort of hard to come by middle of the year last year. And so we did kind of a full review, and definitely people are getting close. The one thing that really makes the Tesla nice is that it has such a simple app to use. Like it's literally, it's just one of the most simple apps. It basically has, you know, this sort of picture of the grid, like, you know, the solar, the battery, and even, you know, your car, if you have a car, and then where the power is going at any different time, you know, and you can just toggle things. You know, if you want it connected to the National Weather Service, connect it. if, you're going to be having I don't know, a big party and you want to save more power in the battery for some reason you can. That's probably not a good example. I can't think of a reason, but if you just, there've been some, storms and things, or they're digging in your street and you're not sure what's going to happen, you can toggle that up and down, and just keep whatever amount you want in reserve, and then just use your power, in the evening and cloudy days and things like that. Yeah, it's a good battery. A battery is expensive. It's like a whole home generator or more. A whole home generator you have to, buy fuel for, but if you have solar, you've already purchased all the fuel, and it kind of comes for free.
That's great. We have another question about kind of like the ground mounts, but about a detached garage, but that's close by. What are the options there for panels on a detached garage?
Yeah, you can do that. There might be some trenching to take the power to the house. Most likely it's pretty close, but that would sort of be an addition to like a roof mounted system. But, a consultant can kind of measure that, give you what that might be. But yeah, we just need to get the power to the house.
Then we've got a question about the cost of batteries from, is it Michelle maybe? And sounds like they're interested in the program, but we need to make sure we follow up. So I'll make a note that we're in touch with that person. But yeah, How much do the batteries run?
So right now it's about $16,000 for the battery. The pricing has been going up. Personally, I would wait a little bit on a battery just because I think it will come back down. But there have been a lot of pressures on supply and demand, and batteries seems to be one of the places where we've seen that go up. Just, it seems like every 2 weeks. So, I would say if you desperately need to have a battery, buy it soon, because we don't know how much more it'll go up, but I think eventually they will start to come back down.
And you said those are easy to retrofit in later if you plan for it up front, right?
Absolutely. The nice thing, and I've been in solar for a little while, when I used to talk to someone about batteries, it was always like the biggest bummer of a conversation, because you couldn't just add them later. You had to have a special inverter. You had to have an inverter that was bidirectional. With the Tesla batteries and the ones like them, you don't have to have that special inverter. You have a regular inverter, because inside the power wall is its own little inverter just to convert AC into DC. Batteries all store DC. So it's so much easier. And then, it would cost 40%, it'd add 40% to the cost of a system. And it was only for backup. The more you used it, the more it deteriorated. And it had, at most an 18-month sort of warranty, where the Tesla has a 10-year warranty. It's just so much better, but it is expensive. So.
Good question here from Kelly. This is about the SPAN smart electrical panel, if that can be used with Powerwall installation. I'm not familiar with that one. So maybe.
Yeah, the SPAN is really very interesting. So the electric panel is sort of the most analog piece of equipment in your house. Like when you have solar and you have a solar battery like Powerwall, they're very digital, but you've got this analog piece of equipment that's connecting them. So you don't really have full view into what in your house is using what. So the SPAN panel gives you like full view of everything that's using power in your house, and the ability to very simply toggle it on and off. So if you couple that with Powerwall, and there's an outage, you could easily open up your SPAN, app and say, oh, I don't need lights in the basement. I don't need I don't need this. We don't need to have that running. And you can turn that all off. You can turn anything you don't need off, and then the battery won't be giving out as much. So you'll sort of stretch out the battery life by not inadvertently using things. We all just have stuff going sometimes. If the power goes out when you're not there, you could just turn all of everything off except, you know, the main things like the refrigerator and stuff like that, you know, and save that power.
That's pretty
So,
cool. That's like the real smart home.
I know, it's like, you know, and it just, yeah, it's very interesting.
So it sounds like that's a strong yes. Span can be used with Powerwall. They really
Oh,
come
absolutely. Span, Span, you could use it separately just so you would have that full control over everything in your house. You know, so if you left the house and in sort of a big hurry and left everything going, you could just turn everything off, you know, basically at the breaker.
Cool. We have a good question about the Google sunroof. We
Yes.
got an estimate of 1,469 hours. I guess that's of sunlight. Is that an indicator if you're a good candidate for solar?
I would say the color is the good candidate, like is the thing that really rates it, like how bright yellow it was. But you know, if it's at least within like the orange, we can take a look, you know, we can sort of take a look and see what the output would be when we put the panels on. It's because it pulls that same, the program we use uses LiDAR. So we can get the shading, you know, and all the solar access really, really good. And we still continue to take, you know, shade readings from the roof because we have for so long, but they've been coming up pretty spot on. So, you know, at some point we might fully trust LiDAR, but we do like to take our own readings. So
Paula's got a great long-term question that we care about as environmentalists. Once the panels are used up, what are the environmental impacts of those components? Recycling, disposal, those kinds of things.
yeah.
I guess
So,
that's 50 years in the future after they've run their course, right?
yeah, but really the first generation of panels, like the next decade will be when a lot of panels will start to come up. That first generation will start to come up. And I've got a blog post probably from about a year ago on our website. So right now, like even at sort of a place that recycles glass and aluminum, you can recycle about 85 to 90% of what's there. But there are programs coming, and in Europe, they're working on it because it's coming sooner for them. Like those first sort of panels to sort of maybe not meet the complete end of their life, but the point where it would just make more sense to put another panel on because it's such a smaller wattage. So they're really starting that sort of recycling, you know, process because we just have to keep using the materials, you know, so there's a lot of prep right now, sort of anticipating this next decade.
Yeah. Here's a really important question about the net metering. Will electricity from the panels always offset utility company charges dollar for dollar? They heard that LG&E was trying to reduce the offset rate.
They did. Yeah, it's not always one-to-one. So LG&E, KU, and KP did reduce the offset that they give. And so we have that built into our calculator. So one way we can counteract that is, not counteract it, I mean, it is, but you know, we can look at how your system is going to sort of produce power and when your house is using power and kind of just make sure it's going to work. It's not terrible, you know, they didn't like make it, it's not like Indiana. Indiana has, you know, wholesale plus 25%, and that's really in that 3 to 4 cent range. But at, you know, LG&E, you're getting more of that, like, I think around 70%. I'm going to have to probably look that one up. But definitely when you talk with someone, you know, it'll be Patrick or Caleb, or maybe Devin, they will have that information and can give you the exact numbers on that. And they can show you how that's going to affect the payback, you know, but it can be tailored.
Some really good questions there. I think that's all that's in the chat. So if anyone else has something they've been sitting on, now's a good time to go ahead and throw it in there. I'm going to post the link one more time where you can find all the information on the web and sign up for Solar Over Louisville. And Sumeda, is there anything else we need to cover, Julie?
I will just mention one other program that we have in case anyone has an older roof and you think you might need to replace your roof before you get solar. Louisville Metro Government also has a cool roof incentive program. So we offer a $1 per square foot incentive on a highly reflective roof, which is more energy efficient. It reflects more heat and light off of your roof, keeping your house cooler. And this is actually open to residential as well as non-residential properties. So I'm just going to put a link to that in the chat as well. So if you're considering a roof replacement, get a cool roof and then put some solar panels on it.
Yeah, and if the roof is older, you definitely do want a new roof first. Otherwise, you have to pull the panels down and put them back up to redo the roof. I'm personally doing that right now. I should have I should have looked at the age of the roof, but it was just when I was first getting into it. So. All right.
I'm also going to put our email in the chat for the Solar Over Louisville program, so that if you have any other questions that come to mind after this call, you can let us know, and I will put my number there as well. So you can get in touch with us with those questions and we'll be happy to help.
All right. Well, I mean, thank you everyone for taking the time, to learn a little bit about solar. I do encourage you to sign up for the program, because you'll get a lot of information about how, just getting that remote quote and just seeing what it might be like, even if this isn't the year for you to do it, gives you good information as you look at it in future years.
And don't forget that deadline. It's right at 1 month away, right? August 14th. Is that right?
August 14th.
Okay.
That's just the deadline to sign up.
Yeah. So go ahead. No reason not to go ahead and get your name in the pot.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone.